Good afternoon. The Wichita State University Fairmount College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame ceremony is now open. I am Xiufen Liu, Associate Professor of Philosophy. Our lamp of learning on the small table before me has a significant place in Fairmount College of History. By tradition, a lamp was passed from senior class president to the junior class president at the commencement. This activity demonstrated that the light of learning sweeps away the darkness of ignorance. Our inductees, who you will meet momentarily, exemplify the significance of enlightenment and its influence in shaping lives. We will hear about their experiences in their own words. I would like now introduce you to Sarah Beth Estes, Dean of the Fairmount College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Dr. Dean Estes.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I've been at WSU for 6 months now, and I've been hearing about Hall of Fame. It was one of the first actions that we took when I got here is deciding on who this year's honorees would be. And I'm just thrilled to be able to take part in this celebration with you today. I'm so happy to welcome everybody. We've got friends, relatives, students, faculty, staff, university administrators to this celebration. And I'd like to specifically recognize a few people at the top of this. First, Wichita State University President, Dr. Rick Muma. We also have Executive Vice President and Provost Monica Lounsbury. And we have two previous Hall of Fame inductees, one inducted in 2019, Dr. Donna Sweet here on the front row, and also an inductee from 2019, Bill Simon, and I don't know, I'm not sure where, there, right there, yes. So please, a round of applause for our previous inductees. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the chairs and directors of the Fairmount College departments. So if you're a chair or director, please raise your hand. I'd like to thank you for everything that you do in the college. Yeah. And I know we have a lot of work that we're doing, and I appreciate your ability to be here today. I also want to take a moment to thank students, and I don't know if they're in here or they already have a job, but students from our College Student Advisory Council who were greeting as we came in today. They have been so busy today, so a round of applause, please, for them too. And finally, for Dr. Liu, thank you for opening the ceremony. I want you all to know that in addition to being an associate professor of philosophy, as you can see in your program, Dr. Liu is also the 2025 recipient of the John B. Barrier Award for Distinguished Teaching in the Humanities and Social Sciences. So please, a round of applause for Dr. Liu. The Fairmount College Hall of Fame is about honoring individual achievement, and that's what we're here to do today and learn more about our honorees. It recognizes alumni who have had a significant impact in our region, in our nation, and in our world. But it is also about something larger that our honorees represent. It is about celebrating the education that shaped them and the enduring value of the liberal arts and sciences in a world that often measures success only in immediate or technical terms. A liberal arts and sciences education does not train us for a single job. It prepares us for a lifetime of living and a lifetime of change. It cultivates habits of mind and ways of being, dispositions, that endure long after specific tools, technologies, or job titles evolve. Among the most important of these dispositions is intellectual curiosity. This is our impulse to ask better questions, to look beneath the surface, and to remain open to complexity rather than retreating from it. The alumni we recognize today carry this curiosity into boardrooms, courtrooms, classrooms, communities, and across national boundaries. Equally central among dispositions is critical thinking. This is our ability to evaluate evidence, to weigh competing claims, to make reasoned judgments in the absence of perfect information. In an era that is defined by noise, by speed, by certainty without substance, this disposition is not merely valuable, it is essential. The liberal arts and sciences also cultivate empathy and perspective. Through literature, history, philosophy, the social and natural sciences, we learn to understand lives and experiences that are different from our own. And we learn how to see individual stories connect to larger systems and structures. That capacity to listen, to interpret, and to respond with humanity shows up, as we can see in this ceremony today, in leadership that is ethical, that is inclusive, and that is grounded. Another defining disposition is communication, right? Our ability to articulate ideas clearly, to argue with integrity, and to engage in dialogue rather than division. Our alumni know how to write, how to speak, and how to collaborate across differences. These are skills that are indispensable in our lives, regardless of profession or of industry. And finally, a liberal arts and sciences education fosters adaptability and resilience. It teaches us not what to think, but how to learn, how to enter unfamiliar territory, how to synthesize knowledge, and how to respond thoughtfully when the answers are not obvious. So today, as we honor our alumni, we are celebrating not only what you have accomplished, we are celebrating how you have accomplished it, guided by these enduring habits of mind and of heart. You are living proof that the liberal arts and sciences matter deeply, not just for careers, but for citizenship, for leadership, and for meaningful lives. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the paths that you have forged and for the example that you continue to set for all of us. We are proud to call you our alumni, and we are grateful to celebrate you today. So with that, we will now confer awards upon our honorees. So, Dr. Warren E. Pickett, Mr. Robert E. Shields, and Honorable Scott W. Stucky, will you please stand? Yes, thank you. You can keep your hands at the ready because I have a little thing to say and we're going to do that again. We are here today to honor and appreciate your lifelong commitment to serving others and to celebrate how your work has impacted our region, our nation, and our world. You can sit down if you like. Yeah, you can sit down. Mm-hmm. So at this part of our program, we will be recognizing each honoree individually and learning more about them. So first, we're going to begin with Dr. Warren E. Pickett, who graduated from Wichita State with a Bachelor of Science in Physics and Mathematics in 1969 and a Master of Science in Physics in 1971. He is a leading international expert in the field of high-temperature superconductors, and we're going to learn more about Warren's life over here on this screen. Have a look.
Raised with 10 siblings on a dairy farm near Rose Hill, Kansas, Warren Pickett became interested in physics when he was a young boy. While a student at Wichita State, Warren majored in physics and math. He cites Joseph Strecker as one of his most influential faculty mentors, who introduced him to many-body theory and served as his master's thesis advisor. Upon leaving Wichita State, Warren moved to New York to study theoretical condensed matter physics at Stony Brook University. After postdoctoral appointments, he joined a condensed matter theory group at the Naval Research Laboratory in Washington, D.C. Warren earned the E.O. Holbert Award and the Sigma Cussey Technical Achievement Award in Pure Science, the top two scientific awards presented by the Naval Research Laboratory. After 18 years at the NRL and rising to the position of senior scientist, Warren joined the physics department at the University of California, Davis. Over his career, much of his research has revolved around computational implementations of the density functional approach to understanding the electronic behavior of solids at the microscopic level. Warren's many scientific achievements include demonstrating formally the possibility of single-spin superconductivity in a half-metallic antiferromagnet and providing the explanation for the surprising 40 Kelvin superconductivity in magnesium diboride only 4 months after its discovery. Warren's research has been supported by the Naval Research Laboratory, the Office of Naval Research, the U.S. Department of Energy, and the National Science Foundation. His professional service activities include serving on the scientific advisory boards of the Max Planck Institute and the Oak Ridge, Argonne, and Ames National Laboratories. His international outreach and mentorships have included universities in Iran and Malaysia and the coordination of conferences held in Tunisia, Morocco, South Korea, and Germany. Warren is a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the Institute of Physics, United Kingdom, and the American Physical Society. He has also been a Watkins visiting professor, returning to Wichita State in 2009 to give a lecture on electron behavior in strongly correlated oxides. Warren holds a bachelor's degree in physics and mathematics and a master's degree in physics, both from Wichita State. He earned his doctorate in physics at Stony Brook University. He retired as a distinguished professor emeritus at UC Davis in 2021. He and his wife Jill, a retired school counselor, live in Davis.
We're going to do it just like this every time. I would now like to confer this Hall of Fame medallion on you. You're pretty tall. I appreciate that. Congratulations. We're going to get the president and the provost to come up here and we're going to take a photo.
So, good afternoon. When I opened the email from Dean Estes, I was gobsmacked. It was the middle of last week when I ran across that word again. I've run across it several times in my lifetime. And on the plane flight from Davis to Wichita Sunday, reading a newspaper, at the end of one of the essays, the author said, "The ending of this movie gobsmacked me." So it's true that I was gobsmacked by Dean Estes informing me of this honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. It took me a few days. Well, I wanted to say that I immediately accepted the offer. In a few days, I realized that there was another reason that I would come to Wichita, to this ceremony, and that was to honor Wichita State University myself from my heart, because it was at Wichita State University that my future career was given shape. Nobody knew it at the time. I didn't know it. Maybe the faculty members didn't know it. So I left the farm and this small school that I went to, high school, Rose Hill High School, and a very small town, Rose Hill, and came to Wichita State University. Many of my siblings had gone to Fringe University. I wanted to go to Wichita State University, first of all, partly to just to have a chance to get lost in the crowd, because growing up in Rose Hill, everybody knows everybody, and it's nice to start over, really, somewhere. It was a matter of curriculum. A university of 12,000 people, just students, just has a richer curriculum than Fringe University of 800 people at that time. And finally, I wanted to see if I could play with the big boys academically. By the big boys, I mean students who came from Wichita high schools, large high schools, and would come, for example, first semester already having had a year of calculus, or having read more English books, or whatever. And I used the term big boys because, in fact, it was almost all boys. In fact, I don't remember in any physics class there being a girl. In my first semester in advanced placement math, there were 2 girls in the class. But the combination of an instructor who didn't really know how to get students as involved as they should be or might need to be, after the first semester, these 2 girls were gone, and again, in any following math class, I don't remember seeing any woman. It was truly men at that time, young men. Things have changed a little bit over the years, and now in a typical faculty at a major university in the physics department, there will be something like 1/6 women. That's up from almost 0 60 years ago, or even less. And that's not going to change very quickly as much as we try, because you have to have the women coming out of postdoctoral positions with high recommendations. They come out with high recommendations, but there's only about 1/6 as many as men who also come out with high recommendations. And they don't go into math and physics as undergraduates for who knows why. But it's a little bit different now, but it's still the case. Anyway, I came to Wichita State University and majored in math and physics, and I was able to play with the big boys. Things went fine. One thing I was asked this morning, or maybe I wasn't asked this morning, but there was a question of what surprised me most about my time at Wichita State University, and it's already been touched on in a different meeting this morning by Scott, one of our inductees. And that was just as getting through the senior year of college, I developed a conversation with my draft board. And I didn't start this conversation. And so toward the end of this year, I got a notice to go to get my draft physical, went on a bus, 6 a.m. one Saturday morning, drove to Kansas City, had the physical, 3 hours, not a lot to it. I passed it, and so forth. And soon after that, I went and talked to Dr. Loper, the chair of the physics department, about this, and the upshot was that he wrote a letter to the draft board. I never saw the letter, but what it probably said was something like, we need Warren Pickett to be a teaching assistant in our program, physics program at Wichita State University, and he's got the qualifications to be a master's student and so forth. Anyway, it was successful. I got a deferment for 1 year. During that 1 year, something that was mentioned by Scott this morning, he drew a very big positive number. I drew a very big positive number, so there was no concern about the draft anymore. And so I just finished my double major and my master's degree in physics, and took the next step, which I won't go into, but the next step was, well, I was a student, successful student at Wichita State University, but it was a university without a PhD program and without the faculty that would back up a PhD program. So I had another step to go to a major university, and that all worked out fine too. And here I am today. And I wanted to come today to especially honor Wichita State University for a very important part in transforming me from a very inquisitive farm boy into whatever I guess I've become today. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Warren. And we're working on the physics thing, the representation in physics. We're working on that. Next up, we will be recognizing Robert E. Shields, who graduated from Wichita State with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science in 1968 and has subsequently built a career as one of the top litigators in the southeastern United States. So please watch to learn more about Bob's life and career.
Bob Shields grew up on a beef and grain farm east of Derby, Kansas. At Wichita State, he majored in political science and became involved in several organizations, perhaps most importantly, the Student Government Association and the University Debate Society. Bob credits Jim Radigan, Dean of Students and Student Government Association advisor, with playing a key mentoring role when Bob was president and vice president of the student body. Two more mentors, Quincy Brown, debate coach, and Marvin Cox, assistant debate coach, worked with him daily to hone his debating skills. Bob's hard work paid off when he and team partner Lee Thompson won the 1968 National Debate Tournament in Washington, D.C. Delta Sigma Rho Tau Kappa Alpha also selected Bob as the National Student Speaker of the Year. Bob was involved in several other student organizations, including Beta Theta Pi Fraternity, and was selected as a Senior Honor Man. Upon graduating from Wichita State, Bob attended New York University School of Law. After earning his degree and passing the necessary bars, he started his law career at firms in Los Angeles and Wichita. In the mid-1970s, he moved to Atlanta, eventually becoming a founding partner of Doffelmeyer Shields, Canfield & Knowles, LLC, and finishing his career there. Bob tried more than 200 civil jury cases and litigated cases in 20 states. Considered an expert on torts dealing with hazardous waste and toxic materials, he took on difficult cases against industry heavyweights such as the Georgia Power Company and Oglethorpe Power Corporation. Perhaps most notably, he served as lead counsel in one of America's earliest major environmental cases. Representing more than 1,200 residents of Triana, Alabama, Bob went up against Olin Corporation, which was alleged to have dumped DDT and PCB in Indian Creek, upstream from the community. A few of Bob's many career recognitions include Best Lawyers in America, Georgia Super Lawyer, National Trial Lawyers Top 100, Litigation Star by Benchmark Litigation, and a Leader in Litigation in Georgia. He was awarded Greenlaw's Ogden Doremus Award for Excellence in Environmental Law. Wichita State honored him with its Distinguished Alumni Award in 1996, and he was its commencement speaker in 1997. Bob holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Wichita State and a Juris Doctorate from New York University School of Law. He retired in 2024 and lives with his wife Debbie Bryan, a lawyer and a former law school professor.
Thank you, Dean Estes and the Fairmount College for inviting me to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I can't tell you how proud I was to receive the invitation last August. My old debate coach, Quincy Lee Brown, was one of the first to be inducted 3 or 4 years ago, and I called and congratulated her and talked to her about it. It never occurred to me that someday I might follow in her footsteps. So I was, if not gobsmacked, I was certainly surprised when I got the contact last August inviting me to join it. I came to Wichita State in September of 1964. It had just become Wichita State from the University of Wichita. After a very bruising battle in the state legislature, conducted by President Corbin, to get it admitted into the university system. And it went from a few thousand students to about 10,000 students overnight, and by the following year, 12,000 students. In the 60 years since then, I have remained devoted to Wichita State, participated in activities and been involved with it ever since in every way I could. And there were many reasons for that. Some of my friends, and attorney brothers, and people over the years continued to stay in contact with me. But one of the biggest influences on me was Jim Radigan. And several people have said this, but Jim Radigan came to Wichita State University as Dean of Students my sophomore year. He was the advisor to the Student Government Association, and so as president of the Student Government Association, I worked very closely with him, became a good friend of his, and over the years remained a good friend of his. He stayed at my house in Atlanta a couple of times when he came to visit in Atlanta. I regret tremendously that I was unable to attend his funeral last year. At least physically, I did attend it virtually. One of the pieces of advice that you frequently get for acceptance speeches is that you should tell a little joke, add a little humor to connect with the audience. It reminds me of something that one of my speech professors, Mel Westmoreland, said back when I took a speech course from him. And that was, don't tell jokes unless you're funny. And I long ago recognized I'm not funny. So let me just end by saying the best advice he gave was be sincere, be specific, be short, and be seated.
Thank you, Bob. We are now moving along in our program to the Honorable Scott W. Stucky, who graduated from Wichita State University in 1970 with a Bachelor of Arts in History. And I've learned today that he loves history. Scott has dedicated his career to the United States as a service member, an attorney, and a judge. And here's more about Scott's life and career.
Scott Stucky grew up on a dairy farm near Pretty Prairie, Kansas. Self-described as a shy intellectual, he threw himself headlong into activities his first semester at Wichita State, starting with pledging to the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity. A history major, Scott joined the University Debate Society and the Student Government Association. He served as SGA president for one term and credits Jim Radigan, Dean of Students, as one of the most influential people of his time at Wichita State. From Dean Radigan, he gained wisdom on how to work with large organizations, maintaining calm and aplomb while sorting through numerous emergencies to find the most important one. He was selected as a senior honor man and as outstanding Greek. He also served in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, which was the introduction to his military career. Scott graduated from Wichita State with a commission as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force Reserve. He then attended Harvard Law School, passed the Kansas bar, and went on active duty as a judge advocate in the Air Force, serving in San Antonio, Texas, Utapao, Thailand, and Syracuse, New York. For 21 years, Scott served in the Air Force Reserve as a judge advocate individual mobilization augmentee and was appointed 3 times as an appellate military judge on the Air Force Court of Criminal Appeals. In 1983, Scott became a civilian legislative counsel for the Department of the Air Force and later its principal legislative counsel. 13 years later, Scott served as general counsel of the Senate Committee on Armed Services and was the principal legal officer for the majority side. He retired from the Air Force Reserve as a colonel in 2003. In recognition of his outstanding military service, Scott was presented with the highly prestigious Legion of Merit as well as the Meritorious Service Medal. To cap off his legal career, Scott was appointed in 2006 by President George W. Bush to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. He served as an appeals judge for 9 years until he became the court's chief judge, and he held that position for 4 years. He transitioned to senior judge in 2021 and maintains this position. In 2022, the Wichita State Alumni Association recognized him with the Alumni Achievement Award, and a year later, he returned to Wichita State as commencement speaker. Scott holds a bachelor's degree in history from Wichita State and a Juris Doctorate from Harvard Law School. Additionally, he holds a master's degree in history from Trinity University and a master's degree in international law from George Washington University. Scott was married to the former Jean Seibert, who died in 2020. She was Assistant General Counsel for Contractor Human Resources at the U.S. Department of Energy.
I'm deeply honored to have been chosen as a member of the Hall of Fame of the Fairmount College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. It is altogether appropriate that the liberal arts core of what became Wichita State University is named after the original college founded after much difficulty in Wichita in 1895. Many of you know there's a building called Morrison Hall over there, dated 1939 and built by the WPA under the Roosevelt administration. Morrison Hall is named after a man named Nathan Jackson Morrison. Nathan Jackson Morrison exemplified the liberal arts and the impulse for learning and improvement that led to the founding of this and many other institutions. A graduate of Dartmouth, he had been twice president of small congregational colleges, and was taking his ease when this place came calling. One would have thought that he had earned his rest, but he got on a train and chuffed out to Wichita and looked at what was there, which was one half-finished building that had been built in the 80s for something that was going to be the Vassar of the West, and instead got caught in a depression and never got anywhere. So God knows why he took the job. I mean, if you want a job that nobody would want, that was it. But somehow probably his New England sense of duty and his devotion to the liberal arts education impelled him to do it. And so in 1895, he became the first president of Fairmount College. Well, being the president of Fairmount College was no picnic. He didn't get to put his feet up. He didn't get to sit in a nice, I don't know what his office in Fairmount Hall was like. It probably, being like everything else, was half finished. But most of the time he was on the train, chuffing his way back east to hit up donors for money to keep the place open. And it was no fun. It was exemplified, Morrison's devotion and dedication to this place that got it started is nowhere better exemplified than in a photograph taken in 1907. Morrison, after years of trying, had shaken loose enough money from Andrew Carnegie to build a library. The library was the Carnegie Library, which stood next to Fisk Hall, and had a beautiful Ionic portico out there. And in 1907, they broke ground for the thing. This was Morrison's great triumph. They took a photo. There's about 15 people lined up in a line out in the weeds north of Fisk Hall where there was nothing. And somebody has a shovel and he's punching the ground to turn the first shovel. So Morrison is over halfway down the line. He's wearing a derby hat. He's wearing an overcoat, even though it looks like it was a fairly warm day because nobody else is. But there he is. He saw this, he attended the ceremony, he went home and died. Literally. He died either that night or the next day. That's dedication. From that seed grew a shaky congregational college, which Morrison's successors had to beat the drums to keep going. Eventually, they managed to unload it on the city of Wichita after a good deal of struggle. For 40 years, it was the Municipal University of Wichita. After, as has been alluded to already, another horrendous political fight. It got into the state system in 1964, and now you see the results. It is altogether appropriate that the liberal arts core of this place, which has gone so far beyond its New England founding, but which preserves the emphasis on the liberal arts that people like Nathan Morrison stood for, is carried out in the name of the College of Liberal Arts. I'm deeply honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. You can see we're moving into the panel discussion part of the conversation. I might be conducting it from here. Because we're looking for a lost microphone, okay? So we'll get that figured out. So I will get us started. I'm going to ask a few questions. I've also lost all track of time, so I don't know where we are in this hour, but I do want to leave time for you all to ask questions. So let me get us started with this. We've spent a lot of time today talking about critical thinking skills. I've heard each of you talk about them. At the top of this hour, I mentioned them as dispositions that we learn through our liberal arts and sciences education. But I know that often sounds to people like, what is that? It's ineffable. What are critical thinking skills? So I was hoping you could each talk about how you conceptualize critical thinking in your own life and careers and how that has applied for you. Shall I pick someone, or would someone like to volunteer? Because I would start with you, Bob, because just before this, you were talking about, and you mentioned debate in when you were at the podium, but you gave a description of what debate, how it helped you organize your thoughts that you have carried through in your life.
Most people would think, well, for a trial lawyer, the benefit of debate was learning how to speak. That's part of it, but to me, the most critical part of what debate taught me was gathering a large amount of information, assembling it, analyzing it, organizing it, and putting together a cogent, persuasive argument based upon that. That's what critical thinking is to me. It is the heart of what law school is about. It is the heart of what going into the courtroom is about, is being able to take that information and make it understandable, persuasive to other people who then can apply those same skills in reaching a decision.
Well, the thing I got out of Wichita State, the most important thing I got out of Wichita State was not historical knowledge, although I certainly got that. And I got an enormous amount of enjoyment out of being a history major and a political science minor at this school. What I really got out of Wichita State was something that wasn't necessarily academic, and that was how to move in society, how to get along with people, how to work with people, how to make things happen. To that I owe more than anything else my fraternity. I got so much out of it. One of the best decisions I ever made in college I made right at the beginning, and that was the Pledge of Fraternity, and I owe it more than I can describe. Because when I got there, I was a shy farm kid. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I knew a lot of academic things, but I didn't know anything about human relations. And by the time I left, I think the job wasn't done, but it certainly had moved a ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I can give a perspective on, from my point of view, from a scientist's point of view, of critical thought and critical listening. And I'm not sure that I developed this at Wichita State University. Actually, a little bit of it I developed by the age of 10 when I formed some very firm conclusions about organized religion and what I thought was not critical thinking about the the religions. I read then and continued to read through my college years. At Wichita State University, I think I was not very critical of my professors' teachings. I was very much accepting, the mathematical teachings, and a lot of those are theorems and so forth. It's just mathematical realities. But physics theories are to be critically analyzed, critically thought about, and sometime reasonably early in my career, I became a critical listener, a critical reader, and I think probably a little too critical because, and sometimes with physical theories, not with other kinds of thinking, it's a good idea to take the point of view of what you're reading and see if you can follow it on further, or if you can't, then that's another point of view. So I still find myself being a very critical reader, and not always correctly. So that's my view. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to get a time check before. Are we good on me continuing? For this? Okay, great. Then I'm going to continue, and I'm going to ask you another question about, these sort of dispositions or competencies. So as I think we all discussed earlier, in Fairmount College, the faculty have passed several graduation competencies for students, and one of those is global awareness and cultural literacy. And I was hoping we could hear you all talk about how those concepts have applied in your work and life, kind of the same question we had for critical thinking. What is the importance of those things for our students sitting here today?
Well, I don't know what global awareness means.
We'd have to read that to you from our website.
As I said to you earlier today, when I got here, the university had a rather detailed core curriculum, which I thought did a very good job of exposing students to the things they needed to be exposed to become, as they say in the Harvard conferral of bachelor's degrees, educated men and women. I thought they really did a good job. I thought the additions that Fairmount College made to that core for its students were altogether appropriate. And I thought I don't know what they have today, but in those days I thought the thing was quite well set out, and I thought it did a good job of exposing students to a broad variety of things, including probably global awareness, if I know what the hell global awareness is. But critical thinking, yes. Basic knowledge one needs to live in society, yes. I think they did a good job of it. Like I say, I don't know what they do today, but that's the way I'd answer the question.
When I was here, the largest campus organization was the International Club. I don't know whether that's still true, but there was a huge population of international students, and I had the fortune of living with the president of that organization. I was telling someone this morning, when I came to campus, along with 4 other freshman men who were on scholarship, we had our own separate 3-bedroom house next to the library, a building that doesn't even exist anymore. It was an experiment to see whether that kind of environment made you perform better or worse, I guess. But the head of our house, a graduate student in aeronautical engineering, was Iranian, and the president of the International Club. And so we constantly had a lot of international students coming in and out of the house and him meeting with them. Remained good friends with him for the rest of his life. He went back to Iran for a few years before the Shah fell, and then quickly beat a retreat to the United States to avoid what was happening there. But so that's the kind of cultural awareness that the university gave that I otherwise would not have had an opportunity for.
Thank you.
So I don't know if what I think of addresses your question or comment very closely, but international or global thinking, international connectedness in science, it's been so important over the centuries. International scrutiny of each other and agreement, finally, to come to understanding of real scientific I wouldn't call them truths, but what the evidence is. I think of the late 1950s, in the middle of the Cold War, that some American physicists got together and just went to the Soviet Union to visit Soviet physicists, scientists, and went there for 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, came back, I think they never asked the State Department anything like that. And within a year, I believe there was a contingent of Soviet scientists who came to the United States, and the respective academies of sciences got on the same page and supported these exchanges, which lasted through the 1960s, and for reasons I don't have it heard, died out toward the 70s. But understanding of, actually developing the new concepts and new aspects of science has been a very international activity for a long time. Initially, 5 centuries ago, it was primarily European, with some input from Arabic countries and occasionally from China. But without the international cooperation, science will slow down and suffer.
Warren, thank you. I wanted to have a fun question for this panel, and they might have you think they did not receive these questions in advance. They did. But I want to also say with this, I've learned a lot of tricks from our honorees today. And one I learned from Warren while he was standing up at this podium, because this morning I said, you know, I think I'm going to ask y'all to share a story about your time here that would surprise us. And he was like, I do not like that question. And you heard him preempt it right up here at this podium. He's like, I'll get there first, and then you can't ask that question. So I've learned a trick from you. So what I'm going to ask you as our last question before we turn this over to the audience is if you could just give a piece of advice for students here today, what would you say?
Want to start with me?
Sure.
Okay, a simple one. Too simple, but be skeptical of AI. And that's too easy. That's too easy. I would say do your best to broaden your background, your education. Liberal arts and sciences is the college that's sort of dedicated to that. We need people who go straight into engineering. We need people who go straight into law, whatever. But try to work to broaden your experiences and your understanding while you're in college, and keep at it later.
Thank you.
I would say I think the most important thing you can do beyond your studies is to be involved in student activities on campus as much as possible. And I know how difficult that is in an urban university where such a large percentage of the student body work. And it's difficult, I know. I had the benefit of being a scholarship student where I didn't have to work, and so I was able to be more involved than otherwise. But even for those that do have to work, you'll get the most out of college if you become as involved as you possibly can in what's happening at the school itself.
Great, thank you.
Well, Bob has put it very well. I would only add that treat it as a gift. It's 4 years of free time. Even if you have to work, you'll never have another chance like this to learn things, to improve yourself. Don't treat it as job training. That'll come. Treat it as it's supposed to be treated. Treat it as people like Nathan Morrison treated it, or Plato, or Aristotle. To be a better person, to learn the kind of things that you need to operate in society. And remember, the Greeks said man was naturally political. and that the man who didn't operate in society was either a god or a monster. So take advantage of it. Don't treat it as just a way to a job. It's far more than that.
Well, thank you. I think that's a great note to end the panel on. And then I don't know who to hand this microphone to, Cheryl. Sure. Oh, they have microphones out there? Oh, great. So if you have any questions for our honorees today, now is the time to, or if you want to roast them. I think you have some family and friends here, so, whatever you might want to do, now is that time.
Just to add to those thoughts, I've learned over the past years, 30 or 40 years, the most important 3 words is imagination, and then focus, and then innovate. So I have a question for Warren.
Oh.
So AI would not be able to develop single spin?
Develop what?
Single spin, the thing that you're on your superconductivity?
AI derives things from the databases it works from. And it picks, at each step, more or less picks the most likely, the most popular choice. It's not likely to write any useful new novel. We can see about that maybe sometime. But it's a tool to be used in the right sort of way, I think. And beyond that, I don't have any more insight than most other people.
Yes.
Thank you. I was struck by the fact that all 3 of your bios mentioned farm life, and I thought about that in terms of the self-reliance that a farmer must have, at least to some extent, more than, say, a city boy with most everything he needs at a corner shop or someplace locally. And I wondered if you would comment on what it was like in the 60s, growing up on the farm, in your perception at least, versus the others around you who came from city life.
I would mention, I just learned today that Warren's farm is only a few miles from the farm I grew up on. Yeah. And one of the things I learned from working on a farm, my brothers here can attest to that, is if you don't want to get up at 5 in the morning and go out in the cold and the snow to feed the cattle, you need to find some other occupation. Some other occupation.
So regarding self-reliance, I think what you said is true, that the farmer, the whatever class you want to include here, where we grew up, was very much a self-reliant sort of gathering of people. And that has good points and it has bad points, but I think we need to also be reliant on other people, and people in cities learn that more quickly probably. But also, when my dad decided to build a new house when I was 2 years old, it was a community affair. And it was self-reliance in a community fashion. There was lots of skepticism about federal regulations, and when wheat restrictions, wheat allotments came into being, actually farmers did a pretty good job of accepting that because they knew that the price of wheat would go down if
continued to produce all the wheat they could, which was that they were doing an excellent job of. But limiting number of acres you could produce wheat on would limit the amount of wheat on the market and raise the price, and overall things would be more stable. So self-reliance is something I think we did grow up with, and I wonder if sometimes it's a little overdone. Yeah.
Well, as I said at lunch, the first thing farming taught me is I didn't want to be a farmer. But beyond that, you do learn a certain aspect of self-reliance when you're 14 or 15 years old. You're on a tractor. You're going around and around and around and around and around an 80-acre field. There's nobody else there. There's no water except the jug you brought with you. There's nothing else out there. And so if anything goes wrong, you're screwed. Or you're screwed if you don't do something yourself. One time that happened to me. I was on an 80-acre field I had another kid with me, and I was refilling the tractor from a propane tank on wheels, and the tractor caught fire. The first thing I thought of was, well, get the damn propane tank out of the way so you don't have 360 gallons of propane blowing up in your face. So we did that, and then I got the pickup and went to get some water or something to try to put it out because I had no supplies, no gloves, no nothing. By the time I got back, he had put it out with dirt because he had a shovel. So that's self-reliance, but it's something thank you. I just as soon, next time, like the man who was run out of town on a rail, I just as soon walk.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more if there's another question out here. Yeah, I think the microphone's coming from behind you.
For Bob and Scott, what was your favorite part of being a part of the University Debate Society, and how did it influence your liberal arts education?
I'm sorry.
I couldn't understand.
He said, what was your favorite part of being a part of the Debate Society, and
Yeah.
how did it influence your liberal arts education?
Well, Scott and I both were part of the Debate Society. It was a relatively small group of people. We worked hard, worked together, traveled together, and literally worked at preparing to do our best every day. So you developed very close friendships from that have lasted a long time. One thing I would mention, not specifically in response to your question, but related, one of the things that surprised me over the years as a trial lawyer who tried cases all over the country is I've constantly come in contact with former debaters who would say, oh, I remember you. You debated at Wichita State. And so there's this network of former debaters who are lawyers out there that if you do any national practice at all, you're going to come in contact with them.
He's good. He's going to hold his peace. Well, thank you, Warren and Bob and Scott, for being with us today, for letting us learn from you, and for letting us celebrate you. We are going to continue that celebration next door with a reception in the Miller Concert Hall, so please join us there. And with that, Professor Liu, will you come forward to complete and close out our celebration?
The Wichita State University Fairmount College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame ceremony is now concluded. Thank you very much for joining us for this special occasion to celebrate liberal arts and sciences.